Hey, wives. Coach C here with you on today. Happy Self-Care Saturday. Listen, just want to pop in real fast. I just came from a business summit, a Christian business summit, which was absolutely amazing. And they had a few guest speakers there. And I wanted to just share with you, some of the highlights from the business summit. Though it was a business summit, a Christian business summit, one of the things I'm always looking for God in the message. I always look for God in the message. I'm always looking to hear something different. And I think I've shared with you before how one of the ways I feel like God communicates with me is through the cross, right? One of the ways God communicates with me through the cross. And so this morning on my way preparing to the summit, I looked up in the sky and man, it was like crosses, like a straight line of crosses across the sky. I was like, God, what is you gonna say to me today in this business meeting? Because what is this about? And in past, normally when I see crosses up, in the sky like that, that's God's way of, let me know that, he got me covered. He got me covered. Well, I had been dealing with some frustrations, not much, but a little bit of frustration when it came down to a certain part of my business. And I had really been asking God, like, you got to say something. Like, you got to say something about this particular area in my business. And so when I went out and seen that this morning, it was almost like that was like God's way of saying, I got you covered. And my thing, I always, my way of communicating with God, my way of, just knowing that God is, hearing me, is, I need to hear from you, God. I need to hear from you. That's how I train my wives. That's how I train my, my clients. Just being able to know what is your rhythm, in the words of one of my clients, what is your rhythm? What works for you? How you connect with God? How can you tap into God? How do you get God's attention? And one of the ways that I get God's attention is like, God, I need to hear from you, right? I need to hear from you. So walking out this morning and seeing the crosses was like God's way of saying, I heard your prayer. You're going to hear from me. Okay. And so we had a guest speaker. Her name was Stacy Spiller. This is one of her books I actually purchased. If you're on my email list, I will share with you that information with the email that I will send out on tomorrow or Monday. It just depends. I'm tired today. But I normally share a weekly email with my wives on God said. And so normally sometimes I share like information like that. I give, resources and tools. So that's why I always encourage wives, if you're not on my email list, I would encourage you to sign up so you can be a part of my email list so you can get that daily, weekly encouragement. And so she was a guest speaker. And one of the reasons why I signed up to go to one of her breakout sessions is because she was a coach. She was also a coach. She was a speaker and she was a coach. And so that was one of the reasons that kind of attracted me, to signing up for, one of her sessions. And man, she said a few things to stand out. But one of the things that she said to stand out from a biblical perspective, one of my favorite Bible verses from David, that comes from out of 1 Samuel chapter 30 verses 8. After the situation had happened, I think I had just shared with you guys recently. The situation had happened where David was, out fighting, him and his man. They came back, their wives were gone, their children were gone, their goods were gone. And David was just like, God, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, where am I? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And God told him to pursue. And so one of the things that the young lady shared in the session was the importance of pursuing. So many times we get stuck on our journey because we get stuck. Like, you have a moment of you just like, I'm stuck. Like, I don't really know what to do from this place. And a lot of times, instead of just continuing to go forward or continuing to do the last thing that God has told you to do or continue with that last instructions, many times we just stop and we don't ever move from that place. And so that really stood out to me. Because not only when I go to business meetings am I looking for information about the business part of it, but I'm always looking for a message that I can always come back and share, that I can apply to my own life, that I can utilize and help someone else. And that was something that stood out. Another thing that she had said that stood out to me today was the enemy loves to minister to your insecurities so that he can attack your identity. The enemy loves to minister to your insecurities so that he can attack your identity. And when I tell you the numerous of wives that I work with, the numerous of wives that I coach, the numerous of wives that I come in contact with, if that is not one of the biggest things that they struggle with, is their identity, right? And so just her speaking out on that and, talking from that perspective about how and why it's so important, even as a business person, why you have to make sure that you are securing yourself and securing your identity in the Lord, right? Make sure that you're securing yourself and securing your identity even in the Lord. And so she shared a lot of good things, but the main thing I wanted to come on and share with you on today was the power to pursue. That wasn't her title. That's actually Coach C's title. But she talked about pursuing. And I want to come on today and talk to you guys and just remind you the importance of the power of pursuing and why pursuing is so important. And like I mentioned, one of the things that you just have to be mindful of, when you get to a place on your journey where you feel like you are stuck and you feel like, well, what am I supposed to do from this place? Where am I supposed to go from this place? You have to remember that last thing that God has told you. You have to remember what that last thing was. It was one more thing that she had said that stood out. She said, if you feel like you're ready, you're already late. If you feel like you're ready, then you're already late. The excuses and the excuses sometimes I hear from wives about why they are still in this same place and have not gotten to that next place on that journey is unbelievable. It's like, you got to be kidding me, right? You got to be kidding me. If you are getting ready, if you feel like you are ready, you are already late. If you feel like you're ready, you're already late. It is so imperative for wives to get to a place where they are pursuing the will of God concerning this journey, right? Where they are pursuing God concerning their next steps, where they are pursuing God concerning what it is that he wants to do for you next, right? So many wives are here just because my marriage, when there are so many different avenues that God is looking to take you down. There are so many different avenues that God is looking to take you down. Listen, I'm a wife coach. I coach and teach wives, but I tell you, even when it comes down to business, and I go to business meetings and I go to business sessions and I go to business summit, I'm looking for something in that so that I can come back and feed my wives. I'm looking for something from out of those sessions where I can come back and actually feed my wives, because business is just another extension to an assignment that God has for you, right? It's not just about your marriage. It's not just about your marriage. And so many wives are in a place where they are stuck and they are in the same place and they're doing the same things because they're unwilling to pursue. The first thing that David had to do, he had to consult with the Lord, right? He had to consult with the Lord. It was important for David to go after the Lord and see, God, what do you say about this matter? What do you say about this matter? And once you figure out what God says about this matter, and then God gives you the okay to pursue, it's important that you pursue, right? It's important that you pursue. It's important that you go forward with the next steps and with the next things that God is calling you to. I had a client reach out to me and mentioned to me that, she had been served. And she and I had been, I had been working with her for a while. And working with her, one of the things that, was, a questionable thing that kind of came up on a regular was, what were the instructions that God gave you? What were the instructions that God gave you? So I remember in the beginning, we didn't have like clear instructions exactly what God had gave her concerning her marriage. Well, then later on, we then discovered that, God had given her specific instructions for her, but not necessary for her marriage, right? Not necessary for her marriage. And I share it to say, these are some of the things that wives have to be mindful of when it comes down to this type of marital journey, right? Everybody is not necessarily called to stand or to stay in an unhealthy marriage. Once that husband has committed adultery or adulterous affair has taken place, wives, you have to understand you do have the reason, the right to walk out of that marriage. You do. One of the things I always just encourage wives to do is before you make a decision to walk out of your marriage, or before you make a decision to, to exit out of that marriage or covenant, make sure that you consult the Lord, right? Make sure that you consult the Lord. And once you consult the Lord, listen for his instructions of what he tell you to do next, right? Listen to what he is telling you to do next. David consulted the Lord. And when David consulted the Lord told David to pursue. The Lord told David to pursue. Wife, it's so imperative. It's so imperative that you get the instructions that you need when it comes down to your marriage. It is so important that you get the instructions concerning your marriages, because a lot of times wives are disappointed when when they are getting served, or when a divorce decree come and it's like, but did God tell you to do that? Did God give you anything specifically? And I'm just that person. I always see the bigger thing in the picture. I'm always seeing what's on the other side of this, what was the reason, what was the lesson, what you learned out of this, what did you get from this, what was God trying to show you in this. But as a wife coach, that is my job, to help wives to break down and analyze and see exactly, did God give you any specific instructions? And if he did, what was those instructions? Did God say anything to you specifically? Okay, if he did, what was those? And so that's what I walk with wives and help them to do on their journey. When they do the herbal interviews, when they do the emotional healing sessions, when they taking and do a consultation. This is what I'm trying to help wives to get to, because you don't want to be doing this type of stand and on this type of journey if this is not what God has called you to. And this is why I emphasize the importance of wives taking that time to break. If you're going through a separation, be separated. If you're going through a separation, be separated. One of the things that me and this young lady, we kind of went back and forth with a little bit, was I would tell her on a regular, pull back. Pull back. You give him too much of your time. Pull back. Y'all are considered separated. So if you're separated, be separated. And so that was one of the things that we would talk about. And I say those things not because, I'm trying to keep you from your husband, or I'm trying to, you there with your husband, I want to be with my husband too. No, I say those things and tell these things to wives because I have experienced it for myself, and I see firsthand with other wives what happens when these husbands are, being a certain type of way with their wives, and then they're being nice, and they being cuddly, and they acting like they want to come back home, or they acting like they're being a certain kind of way, but really that really is a trap. Sometimes it can be used as a trap. They're putting on this facade as if they're being a certain kind of way, but really they're planning for the demise of that marriage. They're planning for the demise of their marriages. And so many times wives are trying to stay connected to these husbands instead of utilizing that time to hear from God. They're staying connected to these husbands, and they are listening, and they're on the phone with him all night long and talking to him instead of being connected to the source and seeing exactly what he's saying and seeing exactly what God is saying. And so I said it to say, wives, make sure that you are consulting with the Lord, and make sure that you are pursuing what he is telling you to do. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 8. So David inquired to the Lord, saying, should I pursue this truth? Should I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. Listen, wives, if you're not hearing from God specifically on your instructions, and you're not sure if you're supposed to be doing this, I want to encourage you to sign up for your wife consultation today. I want to encourage you, if you need someone to walk with you to unravel this, to help you to break this down, to help you make this a little bit more simpler, I want to encourage you to sign up today for your consultation, or start doing your sessions where you can start doing your own personal work concerning your stand. All right. You can sign up today at www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. Listen, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? Blessings.